smelling the coffee, and maybe they're willing to finally be a bit more realistic. Here it says, this is a quote from Breanna Stewart. Our recent CBA proposal that we got, there's movement, there's traction. We're finally headed in a direction. So I'm excited. Now, this don't mean that these crazy ladies are going to agree to any deal. Okay. Does not mean that at all.
That's Breanna Stewart, Vice President of the WNBA Players Association. And what you just heard is the first crack in the armor. After 17 months of deadlock, the word excited just entered the CBA negotiations. That's not nothing. Because for over a year, these negotiations have been a disaster, with players threatening to sit out, owners refusing to budge, and the entire 2025 season hanging in the balance. So what changed? What finally made the players start smelling the coffee? As one commentator put it.
Negotiations. Now, let's be clear. I think the offer that the owners put in is absolutely fair enough. These players, a lot of these veterans are trying to get everything in one CBA. And that's why one of the players called them, the WNBPA leadership, called them greedy and selfish in an interview, because it's a fair deal. Okay. A lot of these women won't be around for the next CBA. So they're trying to get all they can get in this current CBA.
Here's what the league put on the table in early February. Salary cap jumping from $1.5 million in 2025 to $5.65 million in year one of the new deal. That's nearly a 400% increase. Guaranteed housing for first-year players, minimum contract players, and 2 developmental roster spots per team. Standardized practice facilities across all franchises, ending the era of some teams working out in elite training centers, while others practiced at the local YMCA. On paper, this looks like exactly what players have been demanding. But remember, just weeks ago, an anonymous player called the WNBA leadership greedy and selfish. So why the sudden optimism?
Is collective bargaining agreement. Okay, here it says New York Liberty star forward Breanna Stewart has been one of the most important people to listen to when it comes to the ongoing negotiations between WNBA League Office and the Players Association for the next CBA. Now, I have noticed Nafisa Collier's been pretty quiet. I'm pretty sure they told her to shut up. They put a muzzle on her because every time she talks, she puts her foot in her mouth and, well, we're showing with Unrivaled how to run a business. Nafisa Collier rhetoric has been awful.
Athletes Unlimited. That's the leverage shift nobody saw coming. When that upstart league started making serious offers to WNBA stars in January, suddenly the Players Association had to confront an uncomfortable reality. If you sit out the WNBA season to pressure owners, Athletes Unlimited becomes the only game in town. And if that league succeeds while you're boycotting, you've just destroyed your own bargaining power permanently. The owners know this. The players know the owners know this. And that changes everything about these negotiations.
Unfortunately, this meant she hadn't been in many rooms of late because there was a stalemate between the two sides for a few weeks with no new proposals exchanged. Here it says, but the league office rectified this with a proposal that was sent at the beginning of February following a meeting between the two parties. At least they rectified the silence between them, as the new proposal was still not up to the players' standards. Here it says Breanna Stewart admits CBA optimism.
But here's the deeper issue that's been poisoning these talks from the start. The veteran players negotiating this deal, players like Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier, they're not going to be around for the next CBA negotiation in 6 or 7 years. This is their last chance to cash in. So they've been pushing for everything right now in this agreement. Maximum salaries, full revenue sharing, premium benefits, the whole package. That's why that anonymous player used the word greedy, because the younger players see what's happening. The veterans are trying to extract every possible dollar in this CBA, even if it means the league takes on financial commitments it can't sustain long term.
We've just been fighting about, well, we don't like your proposal, you don't like our proposal, and nobody's going to budge. Here she said, it's been pretty frustrating, but I've been trying to be as involved as I can, Stewart continued. She later added, I'm feeling better about the direction the CBA is going. I'm feeling better. The owners are finally acknowledging and being receptive to what we want.
Notice what Stewart said there. 17 months and we haven't negotiated. That's not an exaggeration. Sources close to the talks say the first year was spent with both sides just rejecting proposals without counteroffers. The players would say the league's offer was insulting, and refuse to engage. The league would say the players' demands were financially impossible and walk away. Nobody was actually negotiating. They were just posturing, waiting for the other side to blink first. That's why we got to February with training camps supposed to start in April and still no deal.
The entire women's basketball community will be keeping its eye on this story to see how it develops as the 2026 regular season inches closer. So that is pretty much what Breanna Stewart had to say about this CBA. Let's go over to Yahoo Sports, as they had some recent content addressing the state of this CBA and things going on.
Their proposal that they submitted to the union. The details are that in terms of housing, which have been standard since the first CBA in 1999, teams have to provide housing for players on a first-year deal.
And here's where the public perception shift becomes critical. Go back to October, right after the playoffs. Nafisa Collier went on that media tour criticizing Commissioner Kathy Engelbert, and the entire women's basketball community rallied behind the players. Pay them what they deserve. The owners are being cheap. The league is disrespecting these women. Social media was overwhelmingly pro-player. But then something changed. As the months dragged on with no deal, as players kept posting TikToks complaining while rejecting reasonable offers, as the details of the league's proposals leaked out, public opinion started shifting. Fans started asking, wait, you're rejecting a 400% salary cap increase? You're threatening to sit out when the league just had its best season ever? Maybe the players aren't being entirely reasonable here.
Facilities, what they should give to players, provide to players, have for players, rather than what we've seen in the past where a lot of teams are going with the most elite and other teams are kind of just practicing at the local gym.
So, it sounds like the league is saying, okay, there are certain things that you want, like you mentioned, housing and standards for practice facilities. All things that are understandable and things that the league are saying, yeah, okay, like we're willing to bend the knee to make sure that you're getting what you need, make sure that we get what we need, and as the league as a whole. But it's fascinating to watch all of this unfold, Cass, because I felt like at the very beginning, let's go back to, right after the links were bounced from the post.
That public perception shift matters more than you might think, because these players have built their brands on social media engagement. When fans start questioning your negotiating tactics in the comments, when the narrative shifts from support the players to maybe both sides have a point, that's pressure the union can't ignore. The WNBA's core audience is extremely online, extremely engaged, and extremely willing to voice their opinions. When that audience starts pushing back against the players' demands, it changes the political dynamics of the negotiation. The union can't afford to lose fan support right as the league is experiencing unprecedented growth.
Either pro league or you're pro player, and there's no in between. Of course, it's not always black and white. There has to be a little bit of gray. But it does kind of feel like there's been a little bit of a shift. So where things are right now, league versus players, how are both sides handling this?
Well, in terms of public perception.
See, I think that this lady is on to something, and I'm gonna continue to sprinkle this through because they have really good content, you guys. But I mean, ultimately, the players are starting to have reality set in, and that's just kind of what it is, man. They need to get this deal done. Get down in the comments, let me know what you think. Let's keep the vision.
So here's where we actually are right now. Cutting through all the posturing and PR spin, the league has put a legitimately strong offer on the table. Not perfect, not everything the players want, but substantially better than the current deal, and financially sustainable for a league that still loses money most years. The players are finally engaging with that offer, instead of just rejecting it outright. Breanna Stewart's optimism is real, because for the first time in 17 months, both sides are actually negotiating instead of just making demands. But let's be clear about what happens next. The union is going to counter with something higher. The league is going to come back with minor adjustments. They'll probably meet somewhere in the middle, with a salary cap around $5.8 million, enhanced housing provisions, and revenue sharing that kicks in once the league hits profitability targets. That's the deal that makes sense for both sides. The real question is whether the veteran players who control the union are willing to accept a good deal, instead of holding out for a perfect deal that might not exist. Because here's the math they need to understand. Every week this drags on increases the risk of delaying the season. A delayed season means fewer games. Fewer games means less revenue. Less revenue means smaller checks for everyone, even under the new CBA. Stewart said it herself in that clip. We're part of a revenue-sharing model now, so missing games means less money. The irony is that the players' best leverage, the threat to sit out, is also their biggest risk. If they actually follow through and boycott the season, they're not just losing their salaries, they're potentially destroying the momentum the league has built over the past 2 years. The WNBA just had its best ratings ever, largely driven by the Caitlin Clark effect and the Angel Reese rivalry. Networks are paying attention, sponsors are investing, fans are engaged. If the players kill that momentum with a work stoppage, it might never come back. And then all these CBA negotiations become irrelevant, because you're fighting over revenue that no longer exists. That's why Athletes Unlimited matters so much in this equation. It's not that the upstart league is going to replace the WNBA, but it provides an alternative for players who want to keep playing if there's a lockout. And more importantly, it reminds everyone that the WNBA's current success isn't guaranteed or permanent. Women's basketball is hot right now, but that doesn't mean fans will wait around indefinitely while players and owners fight about money. There are other leagues, other sports, other entertainment options competing for attention. The smart play for the union is to take this deal, or something very close to it, and declare victory. A 400% salary cap increase is massive. Guaranteed housing and standardized facilities address real quality of life issues. Revenue sharing, even with profitability triggers, gives players upside if the league continues growing. That's a win. It might not be everything the veterans wanted in their final CBA negotiation, but it's a substantial step forward that sets up the next generation of players for even better deals down the road. Because that's the other calculation here. If this CBA is successful, if the league continues growing under these new financial terms, the next negotiation in 6 or 7 years will start from a much stronger position. But if the players overreach now, if they push for commitments the league can't afford, and the financial model collapses, there might not be a next negotiation. The league could contract, fold teams, or even shut down entirely if the economics don't work. So when Breanna Stewart says she's excited about the direction things are heading, what she's really saying is that reality is finally setting in. The union is finally engaging with what's actually possible, rather than just demanding what they want. The owners are finally acknowledging that players deserve a bigger piece of the pie. And both sides are finally negotiating like adults who understand that killing the league helps nobody. The next few weeks will tell us whether this optimism is justified or just another false start. But for the first time since these negotiations began 17 months ago, there's actual momentum toward a deal. The question is whether they can get it done before the season is supposed to start, or whether we're headed for a delayed opening that damages the league's credibility with fans and media partners. My prediction, they get a deal done by mid-March. The salary cap lands around $5.7 million. Housing and facilities get standardized. Revenue sharing gets included with reasonable triggers. Both sides claim victory, and the 2025 season starts on time, maybe a week or two late, but close enough that it doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, both sides need this league to succeed more than they need to win every point in the negotiation. The players need the platform and the paychecks. The owners need the investment to pay off. And the fans need to see the best women's basketball players in the world, competing at the highest level. So yeah, maybe everyone is finally smelling the coffee. Let's hope they actually drink it this time.